Commander Minho stared at his screen with tired eyes. Another day, another empty patrol around the old dead zones of the galaxy. The Federation had been doing these routine checks for over 800,000 years now. Most of the time, they found nothing but cold space and dead rocks floating in the void. Today felt like it would be the same boring trip through Sector 7729, the area that used to contain something called the Sol system. His ship moved slowly through the darkness between stars. The computers hummed quietly as they scanned every piece of space dust and rock. Minho had done this job for 30 years and never found anything interesting. The Federation kept good records, though. They knew that long ago, before most civilizations even existed. There had been a species called humans living in this area. The humans had built cities and ships and seemed to be doing well. Then one day they just vanished without any sign of what happened to them. Dr. Hana worked at her station behind Minho. She was the ship's expert on old civilizations that no longer existed. Her job was to study any traces left behind by species that had died out over the millions of years since the galaxy became civilized. She had learned about hundreds of different extinct species, but humans always puzzled her the most. Most species left behind ruins when they died out. They left broken buildings, crashed ships, or at least some bones. Humans left nothing at all. The scanner made a soft beeping sound. Minho looked down at his instruments and frowned. There was something strange showing up on his screen. The energy readings didn't make sense. According to his equipment, there was a massive power source somewhere ahead of them, but his eyes saw only empty space. He ran the scan again. The same impossible readings appeared. "Dr. Hana, can you come look at this?" Minho called out. "I'm getting some weird readings from the area where Earth used to be." Hana floated over to his station and looked at the screen. Her eyes went wide when she saw the numbers. The energy signature was enormous, bigger than anything she had ever seen before. It was like looking at the power output of an entire star, but there was no star in that location, just empty black space. "Run a deep scan," she told him. "Use the most powerful sensors we have." Minho pressed several buttons and activated the ship's strongest scanning system. The results that came back made both of them step backward in shock. The scans showed structures in space where nothing should exist. There were objects the size of cities floating in the void with no visible means of support. They weren't orbiting anything, and they weren't falling toward any gravity source. They just hung there in space as if the laws of physics didn't apply to them. "This is impossible," Hana whispered. "These readings show buildings and vehicles, but they're not made of any material our computers recognize. Look at this energy pattern. It's like they're pulling power directly from empty space itself." Minho felt his hands shaking as he tried to understand what they were seeing. In all his years of service, nothing had prepared him for readings like these. The structures appeared to be built from some kind of matter that barely interacted with normal space. His sensors could detect them, but only barely, as if they existed somewhere between dimensions. "Should we call for backup?" he asked. Before Hana could answer, every alarm on the ship started going off at once. The lights flickered, and the computer screens filled with warning messages. Something was approaching their ship, but the sensors couldn't get a clear reading on what it was. It was like trying to focus on a shadow that kept moving just at the edge of vision. Then suddenly everything went quiet. The alarms stopped. The warning messages disappeared. The ship's engines shut down completely, but they didn't fall toward any planet or star. They just floated motionless in space as if something was holding them in place. A new object appeared on their screens. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel either of them had ever seen before. It seemed to be made of crystal and light, and it shifted and changed shape as they watched it. Sometimes it looked solid. Sometimes it looked like it was made of pure energy. The ship moved closer to them without making any sound or showing any sign of propulsion. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself," Minho said into his communication system. His voice cracked with nervousness. The response came immediately, but not through their radio. The voice spoke directly into their minds, clear and calm and somehow familiar, even though they had never heard it before. "Greetings, travelers from the Federation. My name is Captain G1. We have been expecting your arrival." Hana grabbed Minho's arm. "Did you hear that?" The voice came from inside my head. I heard it too, Minho replied. He tried to speak into his communicator again. Captain G1, what species are you? What is your point of origin? We are human, came the reply, again speaking directly into their thoughts. We have been waiting for the right moment to make contact with the Federation again. Both Federation officers stared at each other in shock. Humans were supposed to be extinct. They had been gone for nearly 900,000 years. There were no records of any human civilization surviving past the Great Disappearance. That's impossible, Dr. Hana said out loud. Humans vanished from the galaxy long before. The Federation was even formed. There are no surviving human colonies anywhere. Captain Jiwan's voice came again, and this time there was something that might have been amusement in the tone. We did not vanish, Dr. Hana. We simply stepped away from the physical realm for a while. We needed time to grow and learn before we could safely interact with other species again. The crystal ship moved closer, and now they could see a figure standing at what might have been a window or viewing port. The person looked human, enough with 2 arms and 2 legs and a face that seemed familiar somehow, but there was something different about the way they moved, as if they weren't quite bound by the same physical rules that governed everything else. We have been watching the Federation develop over the centuries, Captain Jiwan continued. We have seen how the galaxy has grown and changed. We are pleased with the progress that has been made. Now we believe it is time for us to return and take our place in galactic civilization once again. Minho found his voice. Where have you been all this time? Our records show that Earth became uninhabitable, and all human colonies went silent. Earth remains as it always was, Jiwan replied. We simply learned to exist in dimensions that your current technology cannot perceive. We have been here all along, but existing in a state that made us invisible to your sensors. Think of it as stepping into a room that others cannot see, even though it exists in the same space. The human ship began to change again. What had looked like crystal now appeared to be made of pure starlight. What had seemed solid became translucent. The vessel existed in multiple states at the same time, as if it couldn't decide what form it wanted to take. We wish to establish formal diplomatic contact with the Federation, Captain Jiwan said. We have much to discuss and much to share. However, we understand that our return may cause some confusion and concern among your member worlds. We are prepared to proceed slowly and carefully to avoid any misunderstandings. Dr. Hana stepped forward. Captain Jiwan, our Federation has protocols for first contact situations. We will need to report this encounter to our superiors and arrange for proper diplomatic channels to be established. We understand, Jiwan replied. We have been monitoring your communication networks and are familiar with your procedures. We will wait for your officials to contact us through appropriate channels. In the meantime, we wanted you to know that we mean no harm to any Federation species. We seek only peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding. The human ship began to fade from view, becoming more and more transparent until it was barely visible. We will remain in this system, Captain Jiwan said as the vessel disappeared completely from their sensors. When your leaders are ready to speak with us, simply return to these coordinates and call our name. We will hear you and respond. Minho and Dr. Hana sat in stunned silence for several minutes after the encounter ended. Their ship's systems came back online automatically, and the engines resumed their normal humming sound. Everything appeared to be functioning normally, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Did that really just happen? Minho asked quietly. Dr. Hana was already working at her computer, downloading all the sensor data from the encounter. According to our instruments, we just made first contact with a species that shouldn't exist, using technology that shouldn't be possible, in a way that defies everything we know about physics and biology. Minho set course for the nearest Federation outpost. They needed to report this immediately. As their ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, both officers wondered what would happen when the galaxy learned that humanity had returned. Admiral Wu Jin stood on the bridge of his vessel as it materialized in the space above the Federation's capital world. His ship didn't arrive through any known method of faster-than-light travel. It simply wasn't there one moment, and was there the next, as if it had always existed in that exact location. The massive crystalline structure stretched for dozens of kilometers in every direction, but somehow it created no gravitational disturbance despite its enormous size. Counselor Deho watched from the planet's surface as emergency alerts flooded every communication channel in the system. The human ship had appeared without triggering any of the early warning systems that protected the Federation's most important world. Defense satellites and patrol vessels scrambled to respond, but their sensors couldn't get stable readings on the alien craft. Every time they tried to scan it, their instruments reported different results. "This is Admiral Wu Jin of the Human Collective," came a voice that spoke directly into the minds of every person in the system. "We request permission to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Federation. We come in peace and wish to discuss matters of mutual importance." The Federation's most advanced artificial intelligence systems immediately began analyzing the communication method being used. Within seconds, every AI in the network suffered critical errors and had to be restarted. The human communication system was somehow interfacing directly with consciousness itself, bypassing all technological intermediaries. General Hyok commanded the system's defense forces from his flagship. He had never seen anything like the readings his officers were showing him. The human vessel appeared to be drawing power from the quantum vacuum itself, pulling energy from empty space in ways that violated everything the Federation knew about physics. The energy output was comparable to a medium-sized star, but it was being generated from nothing. "Sir, should we consider this a threat?" asked his tactical officer. General Hyok studied the impossible readings on his screen. "How do you threaten something that doesn't seem to exist in normal space-time? Look at these scans. Half the time our sensors show nothing there at all." Engineer Yuna materialized on the bridge of General Hyok's flagship without any warning. One moment the bridge was occupied only by Federation personnel, and the next moment a human woman was standing calmly near the main display screen. She looked perfectly normal except for the fact that she seemed to exist in several different locations simultaneously. When anyone looked directly at her, she appeared solid and real. When they looked away, she became translucent and ghost-like. "I apologize for the intrusion," Engineer Yuna said, her voice carrying clearly through the bridge despite the fact that she didn't appear to be breathing or moving her lips in sync with the words. "Admiral Wu Jin asked me to provide you with some basic information about our capabilities to help avoid any misunderstandings." Every weapon on the ship had automatically targeted her location the moment she appeared, but the targeting systems couldn't maintain a lock. She registered as being in multiple positions at once, making it impossible for the computers to calculate a firing solution. "How did you get past our shields?" General Hyok demanded. "This ship is surrounded by energy barriers that should prevent any form of matter transmission. Your shields work by blocking matter and energy from crossing a specific spatial boundary," Yuna explained patiently. "We simply stepped around that boundary by moving through dimensions that your current technology cannot perceive. Think of it like walking around a wall instead of trying to break through it." She gestured toward the main display screen, and suddenly it showed images that none of the Federation officers had ever seen before. The pictures showed human cities that existed in folded space, where buildings stretched upward through dimensions that bent back on themselves. Gardens grew in areas where gravity flowed in spirals instead of straight lines. People moved through the structures by manipulating space-time directly, stepping from one location to another without crossing the intervening distance. "This is our home," Yuna said. "We learned long ago how to expand beyond the 3 spatial dimensions that most species perceive. Our cities exist in 11-dimensional space, which allows us to occupy the same general area as your normal space while remaining completely separate from it." Counselor Deho had been transported to General Hyok's bridge to witness the demonstration. He stared at the impossible images on the screen and tried to understand what he was seeing. "How long have you been able to do this?" "We began developing these abilities approximately 800,000 years ago," Yuna replied. "The process took us about 50,000 years to complete, during which time we gradually withdrew from normal space-time to avoid accidentally damaging the developing civilizations around us." The numbers made no sense to any of the Federation representatives, 50,000 years was longer than most civilizations had existed. The idea that an entire species had spent that much time just learning to exist in higher dimensions was almost impossible to comprehend. We spent the time learning to control our new abilities, Una continued. Raw power without wisdom is dangerous. We needed to understand how to use our capabilities responsibly before we could safely interact with other species again. Admiral Wujin's voice spoke into their minds again. Perhaps a small demonstration would help illustrate our current level of development. Observer Una, please show them the Tau Ceti restoration project. The main display screen changed to show a star system about 12 light-years away. The system contained a dying red giant star that was in the process of expanding and consuming its planets. As they watched, the massive star began to shrink and change color. Within minutes, it had transformed from a bloated red giant into a healthy yellow star similar to Earth's sun. The planets that had been burning in the star's outer atmosphere were somehow moved back to stable orbits, and their surfaces began to cool and develop atmospheres. We completed that restoration 3 days ago, Una said casually. The original inhabitants of that system had fled when their star began dying. We repaired their sun and restored their world so they could return home. General Hayek felt his hands shaking as he watched the display. The amount of energy required to manipulate a star was beyond calculation. The precision needed to move. Entire planets without destroying them was impossible with any known technology. Yet the humans had done it in minutes, and they spoke about it as if it was routine maintenance. How? Was all he could manage to say. We have learned to work directly with the fundamental forces that shape reality, Una explained. Mass, energy, space, and time are all aspects of the same underlying structure. When you understand that structure completely, you can modify any aspect of it. What you call physics are simply the rules that govern the current state of reality. Those rules can be changed if you know how. Counselor Deho stepped forward. Are you saying that you can rewrite the laws of physics? Not rewrite them, Una corrected. But we can work within the deeper layers of reality where those laws originate. Think of it like being able to modify the source code of a computer program while it's running. The program continues to function, but you can change how it behaves. The demonstration continued for another hour. The humans showed how they could create matter from empty space, how they could move objects instantly across vast distances, and how they could manipulate time itself to speed up or slow down specific regions of space. Every display of power was carried out with casual ease, as if these were simple tasks that required no special effort. Why are you showing us this? General Hyok finally asked. What do you want from the Federation? Admiral Wujin materialized on the bridge next to Engineer Una. Like her, he appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, casting shadows in directions that didn't correspond to any light source in the room. We want nothing from you, he said. We are showing you our capabilities so that you will understand we pose no threat to any Federation world. We could have returned at any point during the past 800,000 years and taken control of the entire galaxy within hours. We chose not to do so because conquest was never our goal. Then what is your goal? Counselor Deho asked. To serve as guardians and teachers, Wujin replied. The galaxy faces challenges that your current level of development cannot handle alone. There are threats approaching from beyond this galaxy that will arrive within the next few thousand years. We have been preparing defenses and making plans to protect all intelligent life in the Milky Way. The Federation representatives exchanged worried glances. The idea that there were external threats that even the mighty Federation couldn't handle was terrifying enough. The fact that humans had been secretly preparing to defend against these threats without telling anyone was both reassuring and disturbing. We will need time to process this information, Counselor Deho said carefully. The Federation Council will need to meet and discuss how to proceed. Of course, Admiral Wujin replied. We have waited 800,000 years. We can wait a little longer for you to reach your decisions. But please understand that time is not unlimited. The threats I mentioned are real, and they are approaching whether we are ready for them or not. President Saiwan stared at the emergency session hall as representatives from 12,000 worlds filled every available seat. The massive chamber had been built to handle the largest gatherings in galactic history, but today it felt too small for the fear and confusion that filled the air. 3 days had passed since the first confirmed contact with the returned humans, and panic was spreading across the Federation faster than news could travel. Dr. Sunho appeared at the center of the speaking platform without any of the usual transportation effects. One moment the platform was empty. The next moment a tall human male was standing calmly in front of the assembled representatives. He wore simple clothing that seemed to shift colors and patterns as the light hit it from different angles. His presence was somehow both completely ordinary and absolutely impossible at the same time. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Federation," Dr. Sunho said, his voice carrying clearly to every seat in the vast chamber without the aid of any amplification system. "I am Dr. Sunho, philosopher and historian of the human collective. I have come to address the concerns that have arisen since our return became known to your governments." A dozen security officers had immediately moved toward the platform, but they stopped when their weapons failed to function properly. Every energy weapon in the chamber had suddenly become inert, not damaged or disabled, but simply unable to access the power sources that should have made them work. "I mean no harm to anyone in this chamber," Dr. Sunho continued. "I have temporarily adjusted the local physical constants to prevent any accidental discharge of weapons. This is for everyone's safety, including my own." President Saiwan stood up from his position at the head of the assembly. "Dr. Sunho, you have appeared in our most secure facility without authorization. You have disabled our defensive systems without our consent. These actions do not seem consistent with peaceful intentions." "I understand your concern," Dr. Sunho replied. "However, I felt it was important to address this assembly directly rather than working through slower diplomatic channels. The fear that is spreading through your member worlds could lead to dangerous decisions if it is not addressed quickly." Ambassador Minji materialized next to Dr. Sunho, her appearance causing another wave of alarm to ripple through the chamber. She looked like a perfectly normal humanoid female, but like her companion, there was something about her presence that suggested she existed according to different rules than everything else in the room. "President Saiwan, honored representatives," Ambassador Minji said, "we are aware that many of your worlds are considering military action against us. We want to explain why such action would be both unnecessary and ineffective." Director Taejin, head of Federation Intelligence, activated his personal communicator. "All units, we have 2 unauthorized aliens in the main chamber. Initiate lockdown protocols immediately." Nothing happened. The chamber's security systems had become completely unresponsive. Emergency barriers that should have sealed all exits remained open. Communication networks that should have connected to military command centers produced only silence. "Director Taejin," Ambassador Minji said, turning toward his location in the assembly, "your security systems are functioning normally. We have simply created a small pocket of altered spacetime around this chamber. No signals can enter or leave this area until our discussion is complete. This is to prevent any misunderstandings that might arise from partial or incomplete information reaching your military forces." Dr. Sunho gestured toward the large display screens that surrounded the chamber. The screens showed images of human cities and installations throughout the galaxy, not just in the Sol system where they had first been detected, but on thousands of worlds across Federation space. "We have not been absent from the galaxy," Dr. Sunho explained. "We have been present and active for the entire time you believed us to be extinct. We simply chose to remain undetectable while we worked to protect and guide the development of younger civilizations." The images showed human observers at major historical events. Humans had been present during the formation of the Federation itself. They had witnessed the Great Wars and the peace treaties. They had been there during first contact between species, during the establishment of trade routes, and during the resolution of conflicts that might have destroyed entire worlds. "This is impossible," President Saiwan said. "Our historical records are complete. If humans had been present during these events, we would have detected them." "You detected what we chose to let you detect," Ambassador Minji replied. "When the Zetharian Empire attempted to destroy the Centauri colonies 400,000 years ago, their planet-killer weapon mysteriously malfunctioned at the crucial moment. When the plague swept through the Vega system 200,000 years ago, a cure was discovered by researchers who found inspiration in dreams they could not explain. When the Rigel supernova threatened to destroy 17 inhabited systems, the explosion was somehow contained and redirected away from populated areas. The display screens showed more images, human agents working behind the scenes during major crises, subtly guiding events to prevent disasters and save lives. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Humanity had been actively protecting the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years. "You have been manipulating us," Director Tajan said angrily. "You have been controlling our development without our knowledge or consent." "Not controlling," Dr. Sunho corrected. "Guiding. There is a significant difference. We never forced any species to make specific choices. We simply ensured that when you made poor choices, the consequences would not be catastrophic for everyone around you." President C1 felt his anger rising. "You had no right to interfere in our development. Every species has the right to make its own mistakes and learn from them. Even when those mistakes would result in the extinction of billions of innocent beings?" Ambassador Minji asked. "Even when those mistakes would prevent entire civilizations from ever having the chance to exist?" The question hung in the air for several moments. Many of the representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The history of the galaxy was filled with near disasters that had been narrowly avoided through seemingly miraculous circumstances. If the humans were telling the truth, then many of those miracles had been carefully orchestrated interventions. "Why reveal yourselves now?" asked Counselor Nayan from the Andromeda border systems. "If you have been content to work in secret for so long, what has changed?" Dr. Sunho's expression became more serious. The display screens changed to show images of deep space beyond the galactic rim. Strange structures moved in the darkness between galaxies, massive constructs that dwarfed entire star systems. They appeared to be ships of some kind, but built on a scale that was almost incomprehensible. "The Devourers are coming," Dr. Sunho said quietly. "They are a collective consciousness that feeds on the life force of entire galaxies. They consumed the Magellanic Clouds 3 million years ago. They destroyed the Triangulum Galaxy 800,000 years ago. They are currently approaching our galaxy from multiple directions." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the building system seemed to disappear. Representatives from worlds across the galaxy stared at the images of the approaching threat. "How long do we have?" President Saiwan asked. "Approximately 4,000 years before the first scouts arrive," Ambassador Minji replied. "Another 1,000 years after that before the main force reaches our outer rim. By the standards of galactic civilization, this is almost no time at all." "Why didn't you tell us about this sooner?" Director Tajan demanded. "Because there was nothing you could do about it," Dr. Sunho explained. "The Devourers are immune to all conventional weapons. They exist partially outside normal space-time, which makes them nearly impossible to detect or damage using technology based on manipulation of matter and energy. Fighting them requires abilities that no species in the galaxy possesses except for us. And what makes you think you can defeat them when entire galaxies have failed?" President Saiwan asked. "Because we have spent the last 800,000 years preparing specifically for this threat," Ambassador Minji said. "Our withdrawal from normal space-time was not just an evolutionary step. It was a necessary preparation for a war that we knew was coming." The display screens showed more images. Human installations that existed in folded space, weapons that drew power from dimensions beyond normal reality, defense systems that could manipulate the fundamental structure of space-time itself. The scale of preparation was staggering. "We cannot fight this war alone," Dr. Sunho said. "We need the Federation to survive and grow stronger. We need every world, every species, every individual to reach their full potential. The Devourers feed on life and consciousness. The more diverse and vibrant our galaxy becomes, the better our chances of survival." "What do you want from us?" President Saiwan asked. "Continue to develop as you have been," Ambassador Minji replied. "Explore new worlds, create new technologies, form new alliances. Live your lives and build your civilizations. We will handle the immediate preparations for the coming war." "And if we refuse to cooperate?" Director Tajan asked suspiciously. Fleet Admiral Kiwan commanded the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 50,000 warships from 200 different worlds had gathered in the Rigel system, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. The fleet stretched across millions of kilometers of space, a display of power that should have been visible from neighboring sectors. Yet somehow, despite their overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, Kiwan felt like he was leading his forces into a battle they could not possibly win. 3 Federation sectors had declared independence after learning about humanity's return. The governments of these regions had decided that cooperation with beings of such vast power was too dangerous. They believed that the humans represented an existential threat to the freedom and autonomy of all other species. Rather than risk subjugation, they had chosen to fight. Master Jinho appeared on the bridge of Kiwan's flagship without triggering any of the ship's defensive systems. The human looked completely ordinary, like any humanoid species that might serve in the Federation fleet. He wore simple robes that seemed to be made from starlight itself, and his presence filled the bridge with a sense of calm that was almost supernatural. "Fleet Admiral Kiwan," Master Jinho said, his voice carrying easily through the bridge despite the fact that he didn't appear to be speaking loudly enough to be heard over the ambient noise. "I have come to ask you to reconsider this course of action." Every weapon on the ship had automatically targeted the human's location, but the targeting systems couldn't maintain a stable lock. The computers showed that Master Jinho was standing in front of them, but they also indicated that the same space was completely empty. The contradictory readings made it impossible for the automated defense systems to function properly. "You are trespassing on a Federation military vessel during a time of declared war," Kiwan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Surrender immediately or face the consequences." "There is no war," Master Jinho replied gently. "There are only frightened people making decisions based on incomplete information. I understand your fear, but violence is not the solution to this situation." Dr. Nari, the fleet's chief scientist, was frantically working at her instruments trying to get meaningful readings on the human intruder. Her scanners showed impossible results. Master Jinho appeared to be composed of ordinary matter, but he was also somehow existing in 11 different dimensional states simultaneously. Her equipment simply wasn't designed to process data about beings who existed in more than 3 spatial dimensions. "Sir," Dr. Nari called out, "I'm getting readings that suggest this individual is somehow present in multiple locations at once. The quantum signature shows that he exists in several parallel dimensions simultaneously." "That is correct," Master Jinho said, turning toward her with what might have been approval. "Your instruments are more sophisticated than I expected. Most Federation technology cannot detect trans-dimensional existence at all." Commander Junho materialized next to Master Jinho, his appearance causing another wave of alarm among the bridge crew. Unlike his companion, Commander Junho seemed to flicker in and out of existence, sometimes appearing solid and sometimes seeming to be made of pure energy. "Master Jinho," Commander Junho said, "the fleet commanders are preparing to open fire. Should I implement defensive measures?" "That will not be necessary," Master Jinho replied. "Fleet Admiral Kiwan is an intelligent officer. He will realize that attacking us would serve no useful purpose." Kiwan felt his anger rising. The casual way the humans dismissed his fleet was insulting. 50,000 ships represented the military, might of dozens of worlds. The firepower under his command could crack planets and extinguish stars. Yet these 2 beings spoke as if his entire force was irrelevant. "You are badly outnumbered," Kiwan said. "Surrender now, and we will consider treating you as prisoners of war rather than as threats to galactic security." "Fleet Admiral, Master," Jinho said patiently, "you are not outnumbered. You are simply operating under a misunderstanding about the nature of numbers themselves." The main display screen suddenly showed an impossible sight. The human fleet had arrived, but it wasn't what anyone had expected. Instead of thousands of ships, there was only one vessel. But that single ship was larger than anything that had ever been built. It stretched across light years of space, its hull composed of what appeared to be crystallized time itself. The structure existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it visible from some angles and invisible from others. "That's impossible," Dr. Nari whispered. Nothing can be that large and still maintain structural integrity. The gravitational forces alone would collapse it into a black hole. Gravity is simply a curvature in space-time, Commander Junho explained. When you understand how to manipulate the underlying structure of reality, you can build objects that exist outside the normal constraints of physics. Fleet Admiral Kiwan stared at the impossible vessel on his screen. His 50,000 ships suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the single human craft, but he had his orders, and the fate of 3 Federation sectors depended on his actions. All ships prepare to fire, he commanded into his communicator. Target the alien vessel and prepare for full weapons release on my command. I cannot allow you to fire on our ship, Master Jinho said sadly. Too many innocent beings would be harmed by the backlash from such an attack. Before Kiwan could give the order to attack, every ship in his fleet suddenly found itself somewhere else. The 50,000 vessels had been instantly transported to a star system hundreds of light years away. They hadn't moved through space in any conventional sense. They had simply been in one location and were now in another, as if the distance between the two places had been temporarily eliminated. What did you do? Kiwan demanded. We moved your fleet to a safe location, Commander Junho replied. This system has no inhabited worlds and no strategic importance. You can continue your preparations here without risking harm to any civilian populations. Dr. Nari was checking her instruments frantically. Sir, we're in the Vortex Nebula, over 300 light-years from our previous position. The transition was instantaneous. There's no indication that we passed through hyperspace or used any known form of faster-than-light travel. How is that possible? Kiwan asked. Distance is relative, Master Jinho explained. When you exist in higher dimensional space, you can fold normal 3-dimensional space so that any 2 points touch each other. Moving from one location to another becomes as simple as taking a single step. The human ship had followed them to the new location, appearing in the system without any detectable method of travel. It hung in space near Kiwan's fleet like a monument to impossible engineering. Close examination showed that its hull was covered with structures that defied comprehension. Buildings that existed inside out, weapons that fired backwards through time, and power systems that drew energy from the future itself. Your ship is powered by temporal energy extraction, Dr. Nari said, her voice filled with awe and fear. You're literally borrowing power from events that haven't happened yet. Time is not linear when viewed from higher dimensional space, Commander Junho said. Past, present, and future are simply different directions you can move in, like up and down or left and right. We draw power from the entire timeline simultaneously. Fleet Admiral Kiwan realized that his situation was hopeless. His fleet had been moved across the galaxy in an instant by beings who could manipulate time itself. Every weapon under his command was useless against enemies who existed in dimensions his technology couldn't even perceive. What do you want from us? He asked finally. We want you to return to your home systems and tell your governments what you have seen here today, Master Jinho said. We want you to explain that humanity poses no threat to any species that does not threaten us first. We want you to help your people understand that cooperation is the only path to survival for all of us. And if we refuse, then you will remain here until you change your minds, Commander Junho replied. This system has everything you need to survive. Food, water, raw materials, energy sources. You can live here comfortably for as long as necessary. You're holding us prisoner? We are giving you time to think without external pressures, Master Jinho corrected. When you decide that you would prefer to work with us rather than against us, we will return you to your home systems immediately. The human ship began to change its configuration, unfolding structures that hadn't been visible before. Defensive. Systems that existed in 7 dimensions activated around the fleet, creating barriers that were invisible but impenetrable. The Federation ships found themselves surrounded by fields that prevented them from leaving the system but didn't interfere with their normal operations. This is not imprisonment, Master Jinho said as both humans began to fade from view. This is protection. While you are here, you are safe from the conflicts that are spreading through the galaxy. You have time to consider your options without being influenced by fear or political pressure. Dr. Nari continued scanning the human vessel as it slowly moved away from the Federation fleet. "Sir, I'm detecting thousands of different technologies integrated into that ship's structure." Philosopher King Kyung stood at the center of the Great Assembly, a structure that existed simultaneously on every Federation capital world. The building was a marvel of human engineering that allowed representatives from across the galaxy to meet in person without leaving their home systems. Each delegate sat in their own government chambers, but through dimensional folding technology, they all occupied the same shared space. Elder Borum, the oldest living member of the Federation Council, had lived through 400 years of galactic politics. She had seen wars that threatened to tear civilizations apart, and peace treaties that had lasted for millennia. But nothing in her long experience had prepared her for the proposal that philosopher King Kyung was presenting to the assembled representatives. "Honored delegates," Kyung said, his voice carrying easily to every corner of the vast chamber. "The time has come to acknowledge what has already become reality. The Galactic Federation, as it currently exists, is no longer adequate to meet the challenges facing our galaxy." Chancellor Yuna, who had been elected to lead the Federation after the previous government had collapsed in the wake of humanity's return, stood up from her position at the head of the assembly. 3 months had passed since the failed military action against the humans. 3 months of careful negotiations and gradual revelations about the true state of galactic affairs. Philosopher King Kyung, Chancellor Yuna said, "You are proposing the dissolution of an institution that has maintained peace and prosperity for over 200,000 years. What would you suggest we replace it with?" "Not dissolution," Kyung replied. "Evolution. The Federation has served its purpose well, but it was designed to govern a galaxy where all member species operated at roughly the same level of technological and social development. That is no longer the case." The massive display screens that surrounded the assembly showed images from across the galaxy. Human installations were now visible on thousands of worlds, no longer hidden from Federation sensors. The scale of humanity's presence was staggering. They had been quietly building infrastructure and defense systems throughout Federation space for hundreds of thousands of years. "What you are seeing," Kyung explained, "is the result of nearly 1,000,000 years of careful preparation. We have not been conquerors or rulers. We have been gardeners, tending to the growth and development of younger civilizations while preparing for the challenges we knew were coming." Captain Jeho materialized next to philosopher King Kyung, carrying with him a small device that looked like a crystalline sphere. The object seemed to contain swirling galaxies within its structure, as if it held entire universes in miniature. "This is a scout probe that returned from the edge of the galaxy yesterday," Captain Jeho said. "It has confirmed what our long-range sensors have been telling us for the past several months. The first Devourer scouts have entered our galactic rim." The chamber fell silent. Despite all the discussions and preparations, the reality of the approaching threat was still difficult to accept. Representatives from worlds across the galaxy stared at the images the probe had captured. Dark shapes moved between the outer stars, structures that seemed to absorb light and energy from everything around them. "How much time do we have?" Chancellor Yuna asked. "Less than we had hoped," Captain Jeho replied. "The main force is moving faster than our previous calculations indicated. We now estimate first contact with inhabited systems in approximately 3,000 years, instead of 4,000. Elder Borum stood up slowly, her ancient joints creaking with the effort. "Philosopher King Kyung, you spoke of evolution rather than dissolution. What exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership," Kyung replied. "Humanity will take responsibility for the military defense of the galaxy and the development of technologies needed to fight the Devourers. The existing Federation structure will continue to handle civilian governance, trade relations, and cultural exchange between member worlds." The proposal was both radical and conservative at the same time. It acknowledged humanity's vastly superior capabilities while preserving the autonomy and dignity of other species. But it also represented a fundamental shift in the power structure that had governed the galaxy for millennia. "And what guarantee do we have that humanity will not abuse this position?" asked Counselor Inwu from the Altair system. History shows that power corrupts even the most well-intentioned beings. You have our word, Kyung said simply. But more importantly, you have our actions over the past 800,000 years. We have had the power to dominate the galaxy for longer than most of your species have existed. We have chosen not to use that power for conquest or control. Captain Jeho activated the crystalline sphere, and suddenly the entire chamber was filled with holographic displays showing the true scope of humanity's preparations for the coming war. Weapons that could destroy star systems, shields that could protect entire galactic regions, and manufacturing facilities that could build fleets of ships in a matter of days. We have been preparing for this war since before the Federation existed, Captain Jeho said. Every choice we have made, every technology we have developed, every action we have taken has been focused on ensuring that intelligent life in this galaxy survives the coming conflict. The displays showed battle plans that spanned thousands of years and encompassed strategies that operated on galactic scales. Humanity had been thinking and planning on timescales that other species could barely comprehend. Elder Borum studied the displays with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Why now? Why reveal all of this to us at this moment? Because the time for secrecy is over, philosopher King Kyung replied. The war is coming whether we are ready or not. We can face it together as partners, or we can face it separately and almost certainly fail. Chancellor Yuna walked around the chamber, looking at the faces of delegates from thousands of different worlds. Fear was visible everywhere, but so was determination. The species that made up the Federation had survived countless challenges by working together. What would partnership look like in practical terms? She asked. Human military forces would take primary responsibility for defending Federation space, Kyung explained. Human scientists would work with Federation researchers to develop new technologies and defensive systems. Human engineers would help upgrade existing infrastructure to survive the coming conflict. And in return, we ask only that you continue to do what you have always done. Explore, create, build, and grow. The Devourers feed on life and consciousness. The more vibrant and diverse our galaxy becomes, the better our chances of survival. Captain Jeho gestured toward the displays, and the images changed to show what appeared to be other galaxies. But these were galaxies that had successfully fought off the Devourers, their stars burning brightly and their worlds filled with thriving civilizations. This is not a hopeless fight, he said. Other galaxies have survived encounters with the Devourers, but they succeeded because they were united, because they put aside their differences and worked together toward a common goal. Elder Borum sat down heavily in her chair. The decision you are asking us to make will change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. This is not something that can be decided quickly or easily. We understand, Kyung replied. But time is not unlimited. Every day of delay is a day less to prepare for what is coming. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency messages flooded the communication networks as sensors across the galaxy detected massive gravitational disturbances in deep space. Captain Jeho consulted the crystalline sphere, and his expression became grim. The Devourer advance. Scouts are moving faster than we predicted. They have just entered the outer spiral arm and are heading toward inhabited systems. Chancellor Yuna felt her heart racing. How long do we have? 6 hours before they reach the first Federation colony worlds, Captain Jeho replied. The chamber erupted in panic as delegates began shouting questions and demands. Some called for immediate military mobilization, others demanded evacuation of threatened worlds. The careful political process that had been unfolding over months was suddenly compressed into minutes. Philosopher King Kyung raised his hand, and somehow his gesture brought silence to the chamber. There is no more time for debate. Humanity will defend the threatened worlds with or without Federation approval. The only question is whether we face this threat together or separately. Captain Jeho was already beginning to fade from view as he prepared to leave for the battle zone. The human fleet is moving to intercept the Devourer scouts. We will do everything in our power to protect Federation civilians. Chancellor Yuna made the decision that would reshape galactic civilization. The Federation accepts your partnership proposal. Do whatever is necessary to protect our worlds. The vote was unanimous and instantaneous. Every delegate in the chamber understood that this was no longer a political decision, but a matter of survival. Philosopher King Kyung bowed deeply to the assembled representatives. Thank you for your trust. We will not fail you. As the humans departed to face the first devourer attack, the Federation delegates remained in their seats, watching the displays that showed human ships moving to defensive positions throughout the galaxy.